Dun 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 bum 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 bum. Oh, hey. There's my royalty free music intro. Hey, I'm Marty Walser, also known as Raging Owlbear on social media, and this is episode 12 of Running Storm King's Thunder: The Rescue. And I giggle there a little bit because it's been over a year, I think, since my last recording. And somebody a few weeks ago actually posted on the last recording on the Maelstrom, "Hey, Marty, it's been about a year. That means it's time for another episode." Because when I started this series, I thought it was going to be kind of a monthly thing, and then it became more of a quarterly thing, and then it was biannual, and well, see, here we are. Been a bit of a crazy year for D&D, an unfortunate one. So, we did, since I recorded the Maelstrom stuff, a year ago, my group has not been able to have a steady game. I thought for sure we were going to be able to knock out, kind of try to finish out in the fall and maybe into the winter time or the early new year and finish out the campaign. And then, we played a couple sessions, and then we ran Halloween, a side, one shot Halloween thing, or really it was like 2 sessions. And then we, a buddy of mine wanted to do a Christmas one shot. So, we played that. So we did a lot of, gaming that was not part of the main campaign. And then after the holidays, we had lots of time off because of holidays and various stuff. And then everybody got COVID, everybody who had traveled for the holidays or had family, or when the kids went back to school, somehow the vectors, of course, because everybody's was relaxed about what's going on. My kids brought COVID home from school. I unfortunately dodged it, but my wife got it. And then one of my players later got it from his daughter. Probably from their school as well. And then another player got it. And, so we had weeks and weeks and weeks where we didn't have quorum. And I was trying to make sure I didn't really want to leave a lot of people out of the action because we were coming towards the end of the campaign. And I wanted to wrap it up with everybody playing a part of it. So, we ended up having many sessions missed. And then, various other things got in the way. And before you know it, it was early summer. We'd only played a few games. And people went on summer vacations and stuff like that. And then I got sick, not from COVID, but I just got pneumonia. But anyways, you don't want to hear about all that crazy stuff. But in the last year, we've gotten maybe, I don't even know, half a dozen sessions or no more now because we started getting back into it. But it took us a long time to get from Maelstrom to the end when I thought I was going to be able to push them to the finish line. But anyways, so let's quickly talk about the end of Maelstrom and the rescue. So spoilers for anybody who is playing Storm King's Thunder. Here's where you have to turn off the video because from now on, I'm going to talk about details. My game may be different from yours because I've made a lot of changes. And I'm going to talk about some of those, but even so, spoiler. Okay, so now that you're still here, of course, last time they did the Maelstrom, there was the big betrayal. Some of the giants turned against the party because they thought that, of course, Iymrith was another giant, and she'd been setting up this whole thing, and then so we had this big melee, some of the giants again turned against the players. Then the players accused Iymrith of, and whatnot. So we had to play that out. And Iymrith gets away, but kills one of the daughters. And then Sarissa has to exile the remaining daughter who's still alive for her part in the plot against her mother and father, and of course she's pleading her innocence. She's like, I was being used by the dragon and blah, 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 blah. But, so now Sarissa's court is in disarray. Several giants have been killed because they thought Imrith was one of the good giants, and there was this internal sort of almost a civil war for some people who were on Nim and Mirren's side, and then some people were on Sarissa's side, and then that became a thing. And so anyways, so now Sarissa needs the party's help again. And she says, I've got to stabilize my government and my kingdom. I need you to figure out what happened to my father. If he's still alive out there, do what you can. Or if he's not, bring proof of his demise. And she still has the Krolnar scepter and the throne, so she's the rightful ruler now. But she's feeling a little bit vulnerable, and she's young, and she knows that she could use the help of her father at this time, or at least needs to know what happened to him. Solve the mystery of my father. So, they get the clue about the golden goose coin. And then and of course they've been to the casino a couple times. I've made sure to foreshadow that more than once. They went there just on their own one time, and then I got them involved in Kraken's Gamble again. So they've been to the casino at least 2 times, and been to Yartar I think 2 or 3 times. So they're familiar with the setting, and they're like, okay, we need to go to the casino. And so I played out, it's hard to figure out how to work the mystery, because the book, again, isn't really great at telling you what can they learn and how to. So you have to kind of make up, like, okay, how do they find out intel about what's going on in Yartar? And again, in my game, the Kraken Society is taking over the Thieves Guild, and they're also, of course, trying to back Dryland's political maneuvers to win the city, so that way they can have a stranglehold on the whole city. They'll have both the thief power, the power of the guilds, the underground, the black market and whatnot, but then they'll also have Dryland as a puppet leader, and so they'll be able to control the city from both sides, from the underside and the top side, as it were. And the players don't know this. All they know is that somehow Dryland's involved. And so I pull out some clues, and then they go to the boat. And then, of course, they have to figure out how do they know they want to get their equipment on the boat. The casino boat's going to do a gambling sale, and it's got all these important NPCs on it and whatnot. They know they want to get on, but they know they need to get their equipment on there too. So they come up with a plan to dimension door some stuff and whatnot. So they managed to smuggle weapons and armor. I don't think I let them use heavy armor, but I just said, hey, just adjust your AC downward by like a couple of points, and we'll just play it like that. I just kind of hand waved some of the, are they wearing armor, or how are they disguising it? I was like, whatever, let's just get to the fun part. So they go on the boat, and they've got to carouse, and they've got to figure out how to. They know Dryland's involved, or they know somehow the casino's involved, but they don't have enough hard evidence to confront him. And this is the other thing about the book that I wasn't crazy about, because it doesn't give you a whole lot of guidance on how to manage this encounter on the boat. It just says, oh, if the players confront Dryland, he just confesses. And I was like, what, why would he do that? It didn't make any sense to me. And then the other thing that I didn't like is that how does the Kraken just kill him at a distance? What if the Kraken's that powerful to just kill Dryland? There's got to be some other thing to it. So I had been working, if you've watched my other videos, the whole idea of the Kraken and the Aboleth. The Kraken is basically like a version of an ancient Aboleth. So just like how dragons have their hierarchies of, wormlings, and then young and adult and old, ancient, whatever. Aboleths have that same kind of hierarchy. But what I kind of incorporated is that on the planes that the Aboleths come from, and in the book it's the elemental plane of water, but I kind of changed it up. I said it is a watery world, the plane that they come from, not the elemental plane of water, but a different water world. But all the species, or at least a lot of the sentient species on that world, are all connected through this sort of hive mind. So you have the Aboleths, you have like these mind flayer, like bipedal humanoids, or they're octopoids, or really they're sort of bipedal octopuses. But basically all kinds of tentacled, watery creatures, fishmen and octopus men and stuff like that, and they all kind of are loosely joined in this sort of semi-hive mind. They're not completely devoid of free will, but there's a lot of psionic action going on there. So anyways, so the Aboleth has himself. He's got these fishmen, creatures that are his minions and his cultists, and he's got like these octopus creatures that have psionic powers, sort of mind flayer like. And then so what I did is I said there's the equivalent of like a face hugger, like in Aliens. There's a creature that when the Krakens really bring in occultists, like they really bring in the cultists into the inner circles. So not just like generic dudes who just like whatever, fighting for a paycheck or worship the Kraken, but the people who start to get pulled into the sort of the more inner circles, like Dryland. They want to put somebody in position. They want to monitor them. They want to control them. They want to do stuff like that. Those people have essentially an alien face hugger, or if you're a fan of Stargate, like a gold, basically a creature that lives in their in their neck brain stem, like back there. It's like a little squid. In my game, I made it like a little squid creature to match sort of the Aboleths. So they're almost like baby Aboleths, or very young Aboleths, and this is how they rise in rank. There's a hierarchy, and again, the young Aboleths are foot soldiers for the older Aboleths and whatnot. So anyways, Dryland's got one of these in his brainstem. So that's what sort of forces him to behave. But he still has free will. It's just more like a shock collar, It's there just in case. So yeah, the characters come up with a way to sneak weapons onto the boat, dimension door, other magic ways to kind of transport their weapons without them knowing. So they end up doing that and getting on the boat, but then there's not a lot of, like I said, there's not a lot of guidance in the book as to, well, what now? So what I had happen is basically the boat is going out on this inland sea. Yartar in my world is on this inland sea. And that's also why the Kraken wants to expand its realm, not just in the ocean, but in the other large bodies of water on the world, on my homebrew world. And so they go on through this casino sale, and basically Dryland is told, like, usually the casino sales are just like a booze cruise. Like, you go out, you circle around, you gamble, and then you come back to dock. And so Dryland is given the instructions. The PCs get on board, and Dryland is giving the instructions. No, don't just sail around. Go like way out. Go way out into the middle of the inland sea, like way, way, way out. And so, so I tell I actually kind of tell the characters this, like, I say, hey, you notice that, like, usually it's like you circle around. Like I said, the casino stays near shore. It's not really it's not an ocean vessel. It's more for, luxury pleasure, and it just toodles around the harbor area, with the city lights and whatnot. And then it comes back. But I said, what they realize is that the city lights are going, like, as they go out into the evening, the city lights are getting further and further away, and they're going like way out, like further than what they think normally happens. So they're like, well, what's going on here? And then, so they know they need to confront Dryland, and they're trying to figure out how they can get some information. So I let them kind of do some carousing and social skill type stuff. I do kind of a skill challenge. But anyways, I need to give them this lore dump. I need to figure out how they're going to get some information. So I connect Dryland to the Aboleth and Kraken's gamble. I say that he's met with they talk to some of the staff, they use their backgrounds, as commoners and whatnot, or folk hero, whatever. They use the various backgrounds that they have to, sort of talk to the staff, talk to other, hey, I'm a blue collar guy, kind of like you, and blah, 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 blah. So they find out that Dryland has been meeting with the sorcerer, who's the Aboleth in disguise. And my players know this. Actually, they were a little confused on it, but I just kind of told them outright. I was like, yeah, the sorcerer is the Aboleth's illusory disguise. When it's nearby, it uses a psionic ability to project the sorcerer, and that's how it talks to people. It pretends to be a humanoid. It walks around, gets its illusion to walk around, and whatever. So I said, the staff knows that Dryland's been meeting with the sorcerer. So I start to tie some of the strings together, and they know that somehow he's involved. And I don't know. I think I don't know if I actually told them outright that, there was some men that were involved in Queen Neri's abduction, but basically I tried to give them a little bit of lore dump without giving too much of it away. But basically they know that they have to confront Dryland. So this is where the second part of where the book is a little bit weird, because, again, it just says, hey, if they confront Dryland just confesses and dies. And I was like, I didn't like that at all. But I didn't really have a reason. I was having a hard time justifying why does Dryland betray the Kraken at this point? So, it's one of those things that, it doesn't really matter. The players don't care why. It's not that important. But, for my own head canon, I was trying to come up with why exactly Dryland. And I sort of justified it in my head. Honestly, it's been a year now. So I've forgotten a lot of it. I didn't write everything down. But at the time of the session, I was taking notes like, okay, why does Dryland do this? And what it came down to it is that he ended up losing the election. So the current harbor master stayed, and maybe he was just getting a little disillusioned, or he was getting a little. He wasn't crazy about the fact that this thing's living inside his skull, and while he knew that they were sailing out, that this was going to be an ambush for the PCs, and he was like, you know what? The Kraken's going to try to kill the PCs, and it doesn't care who gets in the way. Basically, he's like, the Kraken sees me as disposable at this point. I still have the deal, and he's still going to try to. The Kraken still wants to place Dryland in a position of power, but now the PCs are a threat. So, Dryland in his mind, or at least that's how I justified it. Dryland's like, the Kraken's going to kill me regardless. And so maybe I didn't achieve its goals, but maybe someone else will. But the other thing is, Kraken's coming after PCs, so they're sailing away out in the boat, and they go into Dryland's office on the third floor. And here, and to make it fun, I built a little replica of the boat out of just cardboard and stuff like that. So it was just kind of a fun little setup. And they could go walk around. So I have the rowing deck, and then I have the middle casino area deck and whatnot, and then I had the rooms and offices upstairs. So this is the top floor deck, middle floor deck, and they actually stacked. I had little columns that I could put in there that were made from chopsticks that would hold them high enough that you could actually fit minis in between the decks. Although, we still disassembled it for the fun of the game. But this is I like doing stupid stuff like this. It's cheap cardboard. I put some lines down on it for 1-inch grid. And then kind of cut it and hot glued it to shape, and it's just fun. It gives the players some fun visualization of the combat area, and it gives me something fun to do during prep. But so I spent, probably way too many hours for this one-off encounter to build the boat, build 3. But, again, I got some Amazon boxes, cut them up, lined them, and, I did it as quickly and cheaply as I could, but have it still be kind of fun. So there's a piece of advice. Look, even if you're not big into doing the terrain stuff, you can turn garbage into fun little handouts or mini maps, put it in a couple walls, cut some cardboard, hot glue it together, and then you've got yourself like a little bit of a 3D effect. And you don't have to go all out. You don't have to build a 3-level boat like I did, but it's just fun little things that you can kind of do to give your campaign if a little bit more just pizzazz or 3-dimensionality at least, so they have an idea of, like, that was the kind of neat thing. Like, when some people were on the top deck, some people were on the middle deck, and we had like these different combats going on in different places. So it really gave, I think it gave more of a idea of how things are going and what people could do to move between the different levels, because it's a boat. So like, oh, can I swing over the side and drop to the lower deck? Yeah, oh yeah, sure, absolutely. It's a little slippery though, so maybe you gotta do a little better on your acrobatics roll to make sure you don't dunk into the sea, stuff like that. And then I had creatures climbing up over the rail. So yeah. So anyways, they get out to sea. They confront Dryland. He tells them, oh yeah, Hecaton's being held on a boat by the Kraken, and the Kraken's coming. So that was that. Basically, he says, here they come. Like, he knows in his head that he doesn't have long to live. So he says there's as soon as he says, oh, they're coming, that's when he dies. So basically, one of the other aboleths gets within the range, triggers his tells this little creature in his brain that says, okay, it's time to extract yourself, and the thing crawls through his brain and out his mouth. So I described it to the players like that, like, yeah, he starts like coughing up blood, and I did like the whole like almost alien thing and then this thing crawls out of his mouth, and they were like, oh my god. Like, they had no idea this crazy stuff was going to happen. So now they're like, oh, and they knew like that I was referencing like Alien at that point. And so they knew this little creature. So I had this little creature like leave a bloody trail as it tried to run out of Dryland's office. And of course, Pao Ming is in there. So it's the party, Dryland, Pao Ming, and Ming is like, what the hell? Because Ming doesn't know, and actually, I don't know if in the book they're using traditional Asian where the last name Pao is first and then Ming is his first name. I don't remember now. But anyways, but basically I say, Ming is in there and is freaking out. Like, it's like, oh my God, what's going on? The creature starts running across starts skittering across the deck to get away, to jump over the railing. And, of course, now it's a mad dash. My characters are trying to trap this thing. Well, first they think, well, maybe we'll trap it and see if we can interrogate it, or I don't know. Like, it's this little squid creature that's running across the ground, and they're like, but they knew they wanted to try to capture it, but then they end up killing it anyways. Like, they do kind of trap it, but then like one of the characters is like, no, we got to kill it, and so he just, without really consulting the rest of the party, he just immediately stabs it, kills it. And they're like, what are you doing? We need it. That's evidence or whatever. But so then as soon as that happens, I have all these fishmen like Sahagin and whatever, Marrow. But basically I have this big combat where all kinds of creatures are now crawling up out of the water onto the boat, because this is the big ambush. That's why they had them sail out into the inland sea. And so I tried to turn that. It's kind of a boring chapter that doesn't really, not a whole lot happens there, but I tried to make it, okay, this is not the party facing off against the various human factions. Dryland dies. Pao Ming's like, oh, holy crap, what's going on? And then the creatures like ambush the ship. And so now the choice of Pao Ming's like, okay, I guess I need to make an alliance with these PCs to get out of this, because everybody here is going to die. And so, you have guests that are downstairs and gambling, and then they're all starting to scream and freak out. They don't have weapons. And so like now, yeah, the PCs, they have a couple different objectives. A, stay alive, but B, limit civilian casualties if they can. Help Pao Ming take control of the situation, get the boat back towards shore, the whole 9 yards. So it played out kind of nicely, because they're like, that was one of the objectives. Like, okay, we got to turn the boat around and get back towards shore. And then I had like sort of waves of enemies, come up and climbing. And then finally, like, so they're fighting off all the fishmen and various, like creatures that I just sort of cobbled together. I kind of used, like I said, Sahagin stat blocks or Marrow stat blocks, but I basically just created a whole bunch of minions and then a couple sort of sub bosses, like larger creatures that would be like kind of the sub boss. But the last thing I had was a like a baby dragon turtle, like one of the wizards, the magic using fishmen is riding on the back of a baby dragon turtle, or at least not a full size one, maybe a young adult, immature one. And so now the dragon turtle is trying to like wreak havoc and whatnot. So it was a big epic fight, and then finally the players were doing really, really well, but then finally the dragon turtle like grabs onto one of the rails, like sticks its head up, and then basically breathes steam. They had the windows of the casino room got all busted out. All the passengers are sort of hiding up against the bar and whatnot. And the dragon turtle like sticks its head in the window and just breathes its steam. And of course, the rogue is in there and somebody else is in there. But of course, the rogue has that area of effect dodge action. Where it can, if he makes as long as he makes a saving throw, he can take like 0 damage. So this thing breathes this breath weapon into the casino area, bar area, and like pretty much all the passengers are just die straight out. And I shouldn't be laughing because that was kind of one of the objectives they should have. So, there was a couple ways that they could have achieved it. Did they send everybody downstairs, send everybody upstairs? But a lot of the people like stayed on that middle level, and that was the problem. And I didn't really make that clear that was what they needed to do. I let them just try to figure out for themselves, and they never thought to be like, oh, what's the safest place we can move civilians? And 2 of the safest places is upstairs in the office areas, near the bridge and whatnot, or send them down to the rowing area. And even though that doesn't seem safe because it's below decks, when there's all these creatures climbing up onto the boat, that's probably the best place to be because you can then guard the stairs. There's limited ways to get down to the NPCs if you put most of them down in the galley. And of course you say, hey man, if you want to get back home, you better help row. So that way they can help row. There's some of the crew can help fight and whatnot. But anyways, so it was a bit of a slaughter. The players did prevail. They chased off the dragon turtle, or one of the players you likes to use the fascinate spell and stuff like that. And so, but basically they got the boat turned around and they fought off most of the borders and stuff like that. And so basically they got away from the turtle and killed most of the others, attackers. So they get back to port, and now there's this big political mess because they have like a boat full of dead civilians and they're alive and Pao Ming is alive, but they actually saved a lot of the crew. So the bridge crew that was steering, and then the rowers, and stuff like that, like all those people, they did a really good job actually. Once they realized they had to get the boat back to the dock and that was the thing, the turtle was attacking the hull, trying to get it to sink and whatnot. So, but once they basically got the boat moving, they were able to save most of the crew. So then the PCs, they get back to the harbor. They've got all these dead people, but the crew's like, hey, these guys, the whole boat could have gone down. More people might have died. There was a few people that got saved. There's the crew, but there was a few NPCs that probably didn't die. And of course it was a big mess. So now, the PCs have to go talk to the harbor master, talk to the current mayor, Lord Mayor, whatever, but basically, try to get there. And so, the harbor master's like, all right, this is a big political mess you handed me because my political rival is now dead. But maybe this is an opportunity. And so they strike a deal with her, and she's not exactly lawful good either. She's not evil, but she's basically like, all right, well, this is a big mess, but let's see if I can play it to my advantage. Um, so, anyways, they find out. They know Hikatan's on this boat. So they arrange. The harbor master's like, look, I have this pirate captain that is currently being held. I'm going to offer her a deal, and then that way you guys get a boat and a crew. You get her and her crew to try to find this other boat. And, so basically she tells the pirate captain, you can either help these people and get a pardon, and maybe you'll die, maybe you won't, or you'll definitely hang. And so they knew that the harbor master was just not necessarily a good guy, but was sort of the ends justify the means. So anyways, they get the boat. They go out with the pirate crew and go searching for the Morkoth. And I was going to run it as this sort of skill challenge with some weather effects, and I really did a lot of things that I wanted to sort of make the voyage more exciting when they get to the Morkoth. And but there was a couple things that just wasn't running quite as smoothly as I thought. I mean, we did some fun stuff with there's these crazy magical weather effects because, of course, the Kraken's trying to protect the Morkoth, and this inland sea is known for its difficult weather, sort of the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald kind of thing, so I tried to play that to the hilt. Anyways, it was an interesting idea. I don't know if it went completely as well as I'd hoped. I thought it was going to be more. I thought the environmental effects were going to be more interesting, but it's like the PCs and once they hit a certain power level, those types of effects are not that detrimental to them. But what I made it a danger to the crew. So I tried to make it more of a, okay, you're not going to be too badly hurt by these dangerous weather effects or these magical effects or whatever obstacle I put in front of them. But then the goal was they have to keep the crew alive because they need the crew to, get them to their destination. And eventually, I pussyfooted around and then basically after a while I said, okay, you spot the ship in the distance. We had a wild shaping druid who could fly up into the air and do some reconnaissance. And so they had all kinds of ways to try to break through the psychic walls that were protecting the Morkoth. And they eventually find it. And so I decided, okay, we're going to try to play this as kind of they're going to try to do what do you call it? A broadside. They want to pull up because Morkoth, of course, got ballistas, but they have one weapon on their boat, and the Morkoth has 2 weapons in front and 2 weapons in the back. But they can only shoot in limited firing arcs. So I kind of played a little bit okay, you have to approach behind. So that means that the ballistas in the back are going to get some shots, but then you can fire back. And so I kind of played it as sort of a tried to play up the naval battle part of that game, and it was fun. It worked, and again, it was the ballistas were less exciting than I thought they would be. I was like, I thought it would be more there's taking huge chunks out of the boat, and maybe you're gonna sink. But no, it was more just okay, well, hopefully nobody gets hit. But anyways, I did a little build for this too. So let me swap over to that photo as well. Oh, that one. So there we go. So I built a little sort of replica of the Morkoth with the 3 decks and Hikatan lying below. I had a little printout of their boat. And then, they had to do sort of a broadside. And I gave the Morkoth a lot more crew because I wanted just more fun, crazy combat. And then halfway through the combat, the tentacles were going to come up. So they're having to fight, fishmen. They're having to fight this, I had this octopoid captain guy who was a sorcerer. Another one of those sort of psionic users, but I used spells instead of course, psionics. And then I had, you can't see it in this picture, but I had the little mini elder brain that was on Hikatan. So they knew they knew that this creature, they scouted and saw, oh, this creature is doing something to Hikaton. It's touching him. So it was like this octopus tentacly thing, and it had its tentacles on Hikaton's face. And so they were like, oh, what is it doing? What is it doing? So they're like, we gotta. So I put, it became more of like a timer thing. They needed to rescue Hikaton, and of course, the tentacles then come up and start to destroy both ships. And they're like, why are the tentacles destroying the other ship? And they couldn't really figure that out. But it added again a little bit more depth to that encounter. It was, I didn't really like it. Again, it wasn't really great as written because the powerful wizard and then the crew, what small skeleton crew that the Morkoth has, is really no threat to the PCs at this power level. I mean, they're just gonna just destroy anything that isn't like super high level. And I have like 6 players too, so that makes it even harder. So I gave the captain, I gave some psionic powers to the captain, and there was another sub boss that wasn't in that picture because they'd already killed him at that point. So those 2 like these large creatures that had psionic abilities. There was the little mini elder brain. Again, I dialed back its power level really far, but it had some, it could do some charms and suggestions, and so that was kind of fun because, again, they were doing the broadside, and they were trying to do a boarding action. So some of the creatures jumped over onto their ship, and they were fighting, and they were trying to, of course, protect their crew as well. But then our rogue and some of the others were like, okay, well, I got to go. Let's go over to their ship. So they were, some of the party was remaining on the fightery people were sort of staying on the ship that they had, and then some of the rogue and one of the spellcasters and whatnot were going to try to see what was going on, try see if they could get over there and get to Hikaton as quickly as possible, because they had the shape-shifting druid, the sorceress, who's my wife, and the rogue. And so the rogue gets over there first. He's like, I'm gonna like parkour across the sail beams. And I was like, sure, whatever, make an acrobatics roll. And I know that he has this huge score, so I was like, okay, you run across and you jump down the sail, and then you do the slide down the sail action with your knife, and just sort of made it kind of fun and exciting. And he gets down there, and that little elder brain creature is got its, like I said, it's got its tentacles on Hikaton, and its head and whatever, and it's kind of on him a little bit. And then so he's like, ooh, I gotta do something about this. And he starts to walk over there, and I say, one of the tentacles like reaches over towards you and points at you, and then basically I cast like a suggestion spell or something like that. And I said, you're my friend, and you want to protect me. You're going to protect me at all costs, or something along those lines. I don't remember exactly how I worded it, but basically, did like a domination suggestion-y kind of thing where he can't attack. He now can attack this creature that's on Hikaton. And not only that, but like, he's going to do his best to protect this creature against his friends, his party. But I wasn't going to necessarily force him to attack the party. I said, you have a little bit of leeway. You need to protect this creature, but and I sort of gave him some ideas like of what he did or didn't have to do, or what might trigger a new saving throw or whatnot. Like I said, hey, if it forces you to attack one of your allies, I'll give you another save or whatever, blah, 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 blah. But basically try to, and it was good. The rogue player, the player who was doing the rogue, kind of leaned into it, and he was bummed that he couldn't attack the creature, of course. But then, he's like, well, can I attack some of these other creatures? And I was like, well, yeah, I guess it depends. So, but we just sort of played it by ear, of like how he could still help the party, but still also protect the creature that was on Hikaton. And in any event, they eventually managed to get him away, or I don't know if they did like a dispel magic or something like that, but they freed the rogue's mind. Except that now the tentacles are like really battering both boats. It's trying to sink. It's like the Kraken. Well, and if you watched some of my earlier episodes, The Kraken doesn't actually want to kill Hikatan. Hikatan has already been enslaved, has already been mind slaved, but it wants to put on a show for the characters. Like it wants to be like, oh yeah, I'm trying to keep Hikatan from being rescued. But the whole idea is the characters are supposed to rescue Hikatan because that will give the Kraken a pet on the Storm Giant throne. So, and the PCs don't know this. And so but anyways, it became this really great battle. And they free Hikatan, and he comes over, and the other ship starts to sink, and so he kind of helps guide the ship. He gets in the water and helps push the ship along because he's like 30 feet tall and whatnot, so he can basically just like paddle his feet and push behind the boat, and as the sailors are getting up stuff. So I say, okay, you leave the Morgoth behind, and I say, and the tentacles eventually just sort of sink back into the sea, and they're like, well, why isn't of course they were doing a lot of damage to the tentacles too. I gave each tentacle like 50 hit points or some number of hit points where if they damaged it enough, that tentacle would then sort of run away, but a new tentacle might come up, but they were doing a lot of damage, and I was like, well, now you have a Storm Giant on your side, so the tentacles are retreating, the Kraken's retreating, and they're like, they weren't sure about that, but I kind of played it off. I was like, so now they've rescued Hikatan, but he's been, he's actually not, he doesn't have one of those implants like Dryland. And I don't know if they checked him for that specifically, but they wanted to make sure that he was him. But what I had actually said is that I had written down in my notes that it was a magical mind swap, this sort of psionic ritual magic, whatever. But basically, Hikatan's mind was going to be pulled out, and a cultist's mind was going to be put in his place. So it's not actually Hikatan. It's another creature now controlling Hikatan's body. So like I was trying to drop hints that he was different or what. I mean, they hadn't really met him, but so they go back to the king's court, and of course he says, I'm now king, and we're at war with the Kraken. So good job, guys. And then he's like, okay, well, and if you're gonna fight the dragon, take Uthor, my right hand man, and Sarissa to help you out. And they're like, great, okay, yeah, Uthor and Sarissa, that sounds good. Like, not putting together in my, I was trying to hint that, like, why would Hikatan has one surviving heir, Sarissa, and Uthor is his most important lieutenant, and a blood relation, I believe, right? Is a brother or whatever, brother-in-law, who knows? In any case, I was like, so Hikatan is sending the two people, in my mind, the two people that are his biggest threats of being discovered that he's a Kraken agent, and he's sending them to die. Oh yeah, you go fight the dragon, help the party. And of course the party's like, woo, we got two Storm Giants. They're not questioning it at all. So that is where it's going to lead up to the next chapter when they have to fight the dragon. So this has gone on a while. I sprinkled some ideas in there. I mean, it was a big dump of what's gone on in my game. So I'm sorry I didn't have more sort of concrete, specific things. Except I hopefully I gave you some ideas of how to spice up the Dryland encounter, how to spice up, the Morgoth encounter. Make them, we're coming to the big finale. So I wanted to really build up to the finale battle. So I have these more intense, I'm ratcheting up, the sort of, I didn't want these chapters to be like, just kind of like, boring or sort of not climactic, we're building to the big finish. I want, growing tension. I think I did a pretty good job achieving that. Although again, we had so many broken periods between our sessions that it really hurt our momentum. That was one of the things. And then, well, I won't get into all that right now. But anyways, there's the Dryland encounter and the rescue of Hikaton. Hope that gives you some ideas for your game. And again, I talked about all the sort of the villains and their motivations in the Maelstrom video, and then a couple of videos before that. So, if you're looking for ideas of what is making the major villains in Storm King's Thunder tick, like why are they doing what they're doing, I absolutely go back and watch. I have the older videos timestamped. Pick the spot that talks about where I talk about the villains, and then you can mine for ideas. Thank you for watching. I know it was a long one. Hopefully you hung out, and I'm gonna try to keep the next one short. We've gotten to the end. Actually, my players have finished the campaign, so I'll just talk about how that ended up and maybe sort of reflect on mistakes I made and how people can learn from what I did wrong, or pull out cool ideas for what went right. But thanks for joining in. Please like and subscribe. I know I don't put these videos out very often, so it doesn't hurt you to subscribe. You won't get, you can even turn on that notification bell. You're not going to be constantly bothered, but it'll help me get a little more visibility for the Storm King Thunder videos. So thanks for watching. Again, I'm Marty the Raging Owlbear on social media. I got a Twitter feed. I have my blog. I'm going to try to do some more updating on the blog and post some of the pictures of the stuff I built. The various boat pictures and the Morkoth. I have more pictures of the Morkoth. So check out the blog, for cool ideas. And anyways, I hope you have a good day. Later much.